but fresh out of high school. Our new friend, Jez Corden, joins us this morning. He's the executive director at Windows Central and a podcaster at XB2 Podcast. We're going to be talking Xbox, PlayStation, evolving strategies for gaming, the rise of PC gaming, issues facing the gaming industry, all kinds of cool games. Jez, welcome to your first edition of Road Gang Radio. How are you?
You're right there, mate. I wish I was fresh out of high school. I need to update that, but I'm pushing 40 now.
No, I know that. I know you're not fresh out of high school. I actually, fresh out of high school is when you fell deeply in love with all of this stuff. And by the way, I really do deeply wish we were both fresh out of high school, because if you were fresh out of high school, I would be in my mid to late 20s and probably very excited about the life looking forward to. But we got a whole bunch of other great life too. Welcome aboard. How are you, sir?
Yeah, doing pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Can we let's just start basically talk about your own love of video games, kind of unpack yourself. I got a bio here that I could read, but that's not as much fun as hearing from the source itself. Talk about your transition from simply being a lover of games to somebody who actually is a voice that needs to be listened to, because we got a lot of friends out there on the highways who often have long periods of downtime, 34-hour breaks they're required to take. 10 hours at the end of the day, they've got to shut down. They have often time off with their families where everybody plays and everybody wins. But talk about your own love of gaming.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's been a lifelong passion for me, and I suppose a lot of people around our kind of age, this sort of traditional sort of gaming ecosystem, whether you started off with the Atari in the 80s and then through to Super Nintendo, and then you had the Sega Genesis, and then the PlayStation 1, and 3D graphics happened, and then now we've got internet connected gaming and all that kind of stuff. So it's always been very present for me my entire life. But I suppose the transition to making it a career for me, and again, this is true of many other people with the advent of social media and YouTube and stuff like that. I just started sharing the passion online, right? Talking about it on YouTube, and we do a podcast about gaming, which is very popular as well with truckers and stuff like that, because it's 4 or 5 hours long, so you can chill a long journey with a sort of weekly news recap about everything to do with gaming. But it's I think I got kind of lucky. I sort of rode that initial early wave of social media coming in and YouTube growing and getting big, and then it sort of turbocharged during the pandemic when everyone was stuck at home, and everyone was sort of reading what they could about games and for a lot of people, getting into gaming for the first time, right? So very lucky, I think, for me. I was an IT technician before, I used to work with computers and networking and stuff like that. And while I was waiting for the phone to ring, to tell people to reboot their computer or turn the printer on and off again to make it work, I used to write blog posts and record videos and things like that in my office while I was waiting for the phone to ring, or between projects and things like that, and spun it out into a career, right?
Yeah.
Very, very lucky, I think, mostly.
I'm going to tell you something, by the way, and there's an element of luck, of course there is, in regards to timing, and that's an important thing about when you get started and when you do this. But there's a lot of our friends out there, and this is a pivot into the internet world, that don't understand that if you set out one day, you have no followers, no social media platforms, nothing, but you've been kind of following it and enjoying it, and you say to yourself, I'm going to make a living at this. Good luck with that. That's not how it works. And I go back to podcasting as well, too. It's one of those things where I have friends now who have massive followings on TikTok, massive podcast followings, massive social media, YouTube followings, who will tell you they started off simply with a passion that they began to kind of develop while they were doing the other thing. And at some point, it's the regularity of it, right? That the only way you really can do this is, and the number of people I know who spent years trying to develop this kind of stuff and were about ready to give up and had no followers, and one day found the formula that made it work for them, is kind of a consistent, ongoing story. The reason I think you're an important conversation for a lot of our friends in the trucking industry is so much of what we've been talking about over the last 4 to 5 years, and I'll let you expound on this, has been people, because of the pandemic, shut in. So many of our listeners, so many of these truck drivers actually were the one group of people who weren't. They had to be out there. They were essential workers. So the world in the internet, in the internals of the internet, changed while they were busy doing their jobs. And so part of what we're dealing with here is a lot of these men and women, when the dust settled and they were able to get back to sort of a regular schedule, showed back up on the internet, and the whole world had changed around them. What I'm asking you in regards to that approach is, if I was somebody who had, I mean, it's a collection of Rip Van Winkles. We got a lot of men and women out there who basically were doing their jobs while the rest of the people were ramping up podcasting, ramping up internet presence, and all that kind of stuff. If I am Rip Van Winkle, how do you explain this new gaming world that people have walked into? How about that?
I mean, you mean gaming is in from a content creator perspective, or what gaming actually entails?
What gaming actually entails, a lot of people don't understand that a lot more communities have popped up since then, and that there's actual studies that show that people who got hooked into social media walked out of the pandemic depressed. People who got locked into gaming actually came out with their mental health more intact. I was thrilled to find that out, by the way. I said, that's why I'm not crazy. I understand. But you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, it is quite interesting the way sort of gaming has become social media in a way, because a lot of these games are permanently online. A lot of the most popular games, they also have chat systems built into them. And that's why PC gaming specifically has become so popular, because you've got a keyboard there at all times, and you can type to make friends and stuff like that. I've got friends I made in online games like World of Warcraft that I've literally had for like decades. I started playing Warcraft when I was 18, and the game's still going now. It just had its 20th anniversary, and those friends are still there and still present, right? But obviously, it's like it's a great way to unwind at the end of a long shift and stuff. And obviously, it is weird because I do work 9 to 5 technically. But, like working in content creation, it's a bit of a lifestyle kind of job, right? You're never really off the clock. But it's such an escape from the grind. Even though I work in games, it's also like you can take on the role of a completely, another person and save the world from dragons, or, a really popular game right now coming up soon is Battlefield 6, military shooter, and there's games like Call of Duty and things like that. There's puzzle games where you can test your wits, social games where you can battle monsters with friends, and then you've got sort of single player experiences which are almost like an interactive movie, right? I think it's there's reams of studies out there about the benefits that gaming have for cognitive health, especially like later in life. And also combating things like loneliness and things like that. There's tons of studies that have been done about the benefits of gaming from a mental health perspective and all that. And just speaking to myself, I took this week off work because I feel like it's been a long, hard summer, I think, in the industry. It's a very busy period in gaming in the summer when the different companies are ramping up their marketing for the holiday season, right? So I took this month off to have this week off. Sorry, not month. I'd love to have a month off. I took this week off to have a sort of bit of a staycation and catch up on some of the games that I missed out on. And it's I feel so much better for it. I can't speak for everyone. Everyone likes different things and stuff. Some people it's reading a book or doing some exercise and things like that. I like those things too, but there's just something about gaming that's always been so much more immersive and special to me. And it's the same true for many, many other people, many millions of people. I suppose billions of people now.
I'm going to tell you a little bit of something about myself to kind of give you a perspective. And by the way, while our gaming experiences are incredibly different, you will see that it actually provided the same kind of thing for me back in my 30s. I had a couple of friends, neither of which is with us any longer, wonderful friends. Anytime a new horror role-playing RPG would come out, anytime Resident Evil or the new Silent Hill or any of that, the three of us would actually go to one of each other's houses and we'd play together. with somebody on the map, somebody making guesses, somebody screaming while the other person made their way through whatever chamber of horrors these gaming platforms had created for us. And it really brought us together. So we would have a week of work, and then we'd plan to get the pizza, and we'd often meet in the early evening, go take a walk, and then kind of settle in and play these games together. And it does in many ways become restorative, particularly if you find a way to turn it into kind of a social energy. For those of you who don't know and are just joining us, Jez Corden is the executive editor at Windows Central and a podcaster at the XB2 Podcast. Windows Central, of course, is windowscentral.com, and the XB2.com will actually open up all the possibilities in regards to where you can find the podcast, where you can find that conversation. All right. I kind of wanted to give you your bona fides and kind of unpack all that stuff as well. I did want to kind of talk to you about your own, what you're looking at these days, and it's a reminder to our friends out there, if you only find one or two games that you love, you can get a return on investment from a platform or from a computer pretty darn quickly, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, do you mean like where there's costs involved?
Well, yeah, what I'm basically saying, I mean, let me kind of unpack that again, because like I said, there's so many ways you could answer that question. There are people who, they'll watch videos on games, and, your job is to play games. They're like, well, I can't play all those games. You're like, you don't need to play all those games. If you simply find one or two games that you really, really love, it's like a gym membership. If you're going to the gym every day and only using the ellipticals or only using the treadmill, but you're going every day, you're getting your money's worth. If you find a game on a particular platform or two games on a platform and you meet friends and you find time to really enjoy your company with them, it's worth it. If, in fact, it provides exactly what you and I just talked about, that sort of solidarity or that sort of comfort or that sort of quality downtime. And I was going to ask you, in regards to your own experiences, there are games you play to give your listeners a sense of what's out there. But what games do you gravitate towards? Which are the ones, along with Warcraft, are the ones that really get you excited about what's coming up?
Oh yeah, I totally feel that. I mean, there are just to answer the first part of your question, like there are so many different ways to get into gaming now. There's like a great service called Xbox Game Pass, it's essentially like Netflix for gaming. So buying games piecemeal can be quite expensive. It can rack up, right? If you pay like for PC Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass, and also PlayStation, it's their own version, PlayStation Plus, I think it's called. You pay like, I think the highest tier of Game Pass is like $20 a month, and you get access to hundreds of games of all different genres, all different styles. You can find the kind of games you like, games that you might take 8 or 10 hours to finish an experience, or games that literally just go on forever and just keep getting updated. Like for me, World of Warcraft's always been my game, and there's a great show on Netflix called The Remarkable Life of Ibelin, which is like a documentary about a chap who he suffered from like a lot of disabilities, right? And he experienced the world through World of Warcraft, and it was sort of like unbeknownst to his parents, right? And then after he passed away, his parents discovered like all these friends and all this community that he built up through World of Warcraft alone, and they made a Netflix documentary about it. So it's incredibly like moving, But World of Warcraft's just one of so many games, and like you say, like even the horror games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill and stuff like that. I remember playing Silent Hill, the first Silent Hill, when I was 11 years old. And I had pretty much the same experience. Like me and my friends would play it together in my room because it was too scary to play by myself.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
So,
I literally had to call a friend, and I was in my 20s. I had to call a friend and say, "Hey, would you mind coming over? I want to play this by myself." Really quickly before we kind of move on to the next point of conversation, I want to give a big shout out to our friend Junker, who is out there letting everybody know that he got home. He's got new eyeglasses. He had a doctor's appointment today. He's going to be back on the road by Sunday morning. Be safe out there, my good friend. friend. And also really quickly on the chat, our good friend Tom Bray gave a big thanks to the previous guest, BJ Ganem. He says, thank you, BJ Ganem, and thank you, Sierra Delta. Guys, thanks for taking the road. Bruce Almighty has joined us in the chat. He's going from El Paso to Plainview, Texas. It's go home day. Get home safely, my friend. I'm sorry about that, but we got a lot of friends out there who want to be a part of the conversation, and we're making sure they get in.
So good, man.
So go ahead, brother. I cut you off. I wanted to kind of put the brakes on you, but you talking about Silent Hill there for a second, about the idea, can I call a friend? It's almost like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Who Wants to Be Terrified Alone? Can I call a friend? Go on. What else do you enjoy?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
there's there's so many. There's a game coming out soon called Battlefield 6, and Battlefield is like it's a big military war simulator. There's like 100 players in the game, or I think it's going to be 80 players or something, or 64 players. I can't remember. There's tons and tons of players in the game, and there's tanks and jets and all that kind of stuff, and it's like hyper realistic graphics and buildings blowing up and all that kind of stuff. It's really, really exciting. Looks fantastic. It's coming out in a few months. But there's, to what you said earlier, there's a new Silent Hill coming out in September called Silent Hill F, which is set in 1960s Japan, and it looks absolutely every bit as terrifying as the original. Silent Hill is going through a bit of a renaissance right now. They remade Silent Hill 2 last year, and that was like exceptionally well done. I was really worried they messed it up, but they did a really great job. There's also a new Resident Evil coming out, Resident Evil Requiem. There's just so much. And this is one of the issues the industry is facing right now, is that like during the pandemic, they invested very, very heavily in this idea that, we've got millions of more players now, but now all those millions of players have gone back to work, right? So there's a sort of sense in the industry that there's like an oversaturation of projects at the moment, which is great if you're a big gamer who can play a lot of stuff, but like you said earlier, like a lot of people of our age, even though I work in gaming, I don't have time to. My backlog is ridiculous. The amount of games I want to play and the amount of games that I can play. And there's also these, forever kind of games which just keep going on and just always get updated and updated and updated. And more people just want to play those instead of experiencing the variety of the smaller games that are out there. And the industry's kind of wrestled with what to do in that situation. A lot of companies have had layoffs, cancelled projects and downsized because of, the sort of generational shift that's taking place where older people like millennials and Gen X and above, they've got less time to play games. A lot of my friends have got kids now, and they've got less time to play, all that kind of thing. You know the story.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things, too, where, I mean, this is the absolute truth. I have been in New Orleans for 2 months. My place of residence actually is in California, where my spouse, Claire Marie, has the PlayStation. I've actually contemplated buying one for here because the best way I can stay in touch with them on a regular basis is to put those headsets on and actually find some game time. But life is what happens when you're busy making plans, and the idea that it's like, how many of the people out there on the road right now? I mean, we know some serious gamers, and there's some guys who have set up their trucks to have gaming systems in the back, but everybody can't do that.
That's awesome.
And so you've got to kind of pick and choose your battles. And I mean that pun intended. I mean, whether it's Rainbow Siege 6 or whether it's Call of Duty or whether it's Dead by Daylight, you've got to kind of pick your battles and you've got to find your community. Because one of the things that we've always talked about here for a lot of the truck drivers out there is finding a good community. That's where I kind of wanted to close out our first conversation. You're a man who actually understands that. How does one, like I've always asked this question of any gamer that comes on here, because we have a lot of truck simulator players who have TikTok, who do those things too as truck drivers. How do you find a good gaming community?
Oh, that's a really good question. I was actually going to mention Truck Driving Simulator. I've got a friend who streams Truck Driving Simulator who also, like, he works with me at Windows Central, and we work from home all the time, and it's kind of ironic that he spends so much of his time playing these simulation games. I'm actually based in Germany, and there's like a stereotype that Germans like work really hard, right? But it's kind of funny that one of the most popular genres of game in Germany is these work simulation games like Farming Simulator, Truck Driving, Euro Trucker, and all these kind of games, right? Which kind of you you do your hard day's work, and then you come home, and then you do it all again. But like
it's like Fisher Price for adults. You know what I'm saying? Where you get like the grocery
yeah,
store.
kind of.
You know, and it's like so. I've always said if you ever want to know what video games are, just go back and watch how kids amuse themselves from 75 to 85, and they've simply turned it into a game platform reality. That's kind of it. But I mean, that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it kind of comes down to, is that we're always looking for ways to play being adults as opposed to actually being adults.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, finding the gaming communities online is different, obviously, per region, and like different countries have different behaviors when it comes to this stuff. Like I'm someone who plays like a lot of solo games, not hugely community-based games, but like World of Warcraft is the one outlier for me. And like inside that game, there's a lot of tools where you can be like, I'm applying for a raiding guild, and then all 20 people will get together on Discord or some other chat program, and we'll go and fight some giant dragons or something like that, right? But for me, like building my community around the podcast and things like that, it was all Twitter and X now it's called. I built my entire career through X and Twitter over the last 10 years. Just conversing with the gamers, and the algorithm kind of, I suppose it'd be TikTok now similarly. The algorithm learns what your tastes are, and it will automatically connect you with people who are sort of like-minded, right? And then you can, reach out to people and, end up building communities that way. I've made so many friends through the Xbox community specifically. I'm very, very lucky and privileged to be able to go to Gamescom in Germany next month, which is a big convention, and make even more friends there and stuff like that, and just you build up a sort of circle of like-minded players around different kinds of games online. Games like Fallout 76, which is like a sort of apocalypse simulator with zombies and radioactive mutants and stuff like that. And there's like even cuter things like Minecraft, obviously, is a very big one, and Power World as well, which is sort of similar to Pokemon, building a base and all that kind of thing. One upcoming game I'm really looking forward to is State of Decay 3, which should maybe come out next year for Xbox and Game Pass. It's like a zombie apocalypse simulator. So you get with your friends, you make a base, hunker down, fight the zombies, in America and stuff like that. These friendships, like they're online, but they're genuine friendships, and if you find the right people, they can last forever, man.
Oh, and by the way, we got to wrap this up. But by the way, as if right on cue, I wanted to let you know that there are at least there's a good number of folks who jump into the chat every morning at YouTube for us as we broadcast live there too on Road Gang Radio. It really is a really cool thing, by the way. And I'm going to tell my friends who are listening right now, all the chatting you're doing right now, Marshall, Trucker Bosun, Tom Bray, Joe J, all of those folks, that's the beginning of what a gaming community looks like. It's just finding people online who you make a genuine friendship with, and at some point, maybe meeting in the real world. I hope you and I get a chance to meet in the real world sometime soon, Jez. I can't thank you enough for making your first appearance here. He's the executive editor at Windows Central, and he's a podcaster over at XB2 Podcast, the XB2.com, windowscentral.com. You can find him on the tweets at Jez Corden, at WinC Space Gaming, and at XB2 Podcast over there on Twitter. LinkedIn, by the way, is Jez Corden. I'm finding you today, and YouTube at Windows Central. Thank you so much. You're welcome back anytime.
Oh, thank you, man. Anytime, man. Anytime you want to talk gaming, I'm down. Whenever.
And we will dig into that. If you guys are interested in gaming, please head over to his all of his socials. They will point you the way to a community where everybody plays and everybody wins. By the way, that's my mantra in trucking. When everybody gets a chance to play, get behind the wheel of a truck, play by the rules, get that English proficiency down, get yourself in the game, and get to the next destination in one piece. Play by the rules and win.